Today from Palworld, we're going to be sculpting Foxparks, Pal deck number 005. This adorable little ball of fire is definitely on my favorites list and deserves all the pets in the world. Hey, where are you going? Aw, come on now, you know you shouldn't be over there. You know you can't swim. Yeah, that's what I thought. Seriously? It's staring at me dead in my face while you're doing it? And what the heck is going on over here? You okay? Alright. Well, you stay down there, I guess, even though you're mixing fire with water, which makes no sense. Okay, so usually sculptors will start with a wire armature, but I'm not really the best at making those, although I probably should start practicing and trying them out more. But for now, I just seem to love to give myself the challenge of trying to put it together piece by piece. After making the aluminum base for the body, I conditioned the clay. And after that's all nice and smooth, I took some bacon bond and smeared a bit on the aluminum foil. And if you need any of the craft supplies, I'll have these listed as affiliate links in the description box below. Once that bacon bond is on there, take the polymer clay and start smoothing it over. Once that's all set for right now, you're left with kind of a weird peanut shape. Moving right along, we're going to be bringing in the cost clay and some aluminum wire. I usually use a bit thicker wire, but I had this left over and wanted to just use it up. I typically use 12 gauge, but I think this one was about 16. So after cutting the wire and curling the end, I'm just going to cover it with cost clay. Cost clay is pretty flexible once it's baked, so it's best used for the more fragile areas, and just like that, we have 4 legs. Now on the main body, I'm just going to poke in 4 holes where I'm going to insert all of the legs. And going back around, making the hole even deeper so that the wire can give enough support. And when trying to put the legs in for the first time, I'm finding out that the wire was a bit too long, so I'm just going to cut some of it off. Easy enough problem to fix, as you'd rather it be too long than be too short. You get your mind out of the gutter, okay? I hear you snickering back there. And after the wire is fully secured, just smooth out the clay so it's fully attached. And oh, the joy of clay being an absolute dust and lint magnet. Let's get this cleaned up a bit. Oop, dang it. Just gotta clean this up. Okay, take 2. Alright, so using some rubbing alcohol and a paper towel, I'm just gonna gently remove the dirt. And just like that, we're clean again. And then we can focus back on fitting the legs. The back legs were a little bit more tricky to do as they needed to be slightly bent. And for the front legs, I put one foot a little bit more further in front than the other. After fully attaching the legs, I added a bit more volume to the thighs. And gave a bit more shape using the needle tool. Now let's crumple up some aluminum foil for the head. And bringing in that bacon bond again. And after that's all nice and smeared, just adding on some polymer clay. And using some cost clay for this fragile area, I'm going to build the neck. Now bringing that head in, I'm going to use the needle tool and smooth the pieces together. To start forming the face, I'm going to add a small piece of clay for the muzzle and start shaping that out. And since the head was a bit too small, I just added a little bit more to the top. And adding some on the sides of his head where he has those cute little tufts of fur. Smooth it all out, and then using the needle end of the tool, shape out the points. And back to the cost clay yet again, I'm going to start shaping out the long ears. Considering how tall they stand, these guys definitely needed the cost clay. Plop it on, smooth it in to attach, and then repeat the same steps for ear number 2. And trust me for this next step, I know how awful it looks, and I know this is one of the downsides of not having a wire armature, but it's necessary. After poking in a hole for the tail where the wire is going to be sticking into, I decided to save my progress with a bake. Alrighty, so now that it's all baked and saved, I'm going to just do a quick sanding to clean up some of the areas. I'm going to do this before I add the giant tail that would probably end up getting in the way. And just a reminder, as always, wear a mask while you're sanding. You never want to be breathing this stuff in. Taking this step helps smooth things out, and it also takes off any of the top layer of dust or dirt that was stuck in the clay. Next, moving on to the part that I was probably most worried and nervous about just because of the size and weight that it was going to be. So maybe take this as a sign to practice wire armatures because it does make it easier at points like this. But for me, I am lazy and like the challenge. So even if my method of trying to piece everything together like a puzzle sometimes comes with its frustrations, it makes me feel accomplished in the end knowing that I made it work. Just a suggestion for anyone else that's going to be sculpting Foxparks, definitely add more aluminum foil than I did because I underestimated just how big and fluffy the tail was. Even though it looks like I stopped adding clay here, I needed to add more later on. But no matter what, just because of the size alone, I need to figure out a way on how to balance this. That's a bit of a future problem though, so let's start making the flames on the feet. To begin this process, I just smushed some thin pieces of glass clay in between my fingers and added them onto the feet. Flames have a mind of their own, so kinda just go crazy with it. Can make them go in any which direction, but also make them look like they have a nice flow at the same time. And repeat that step 3 more times. Now here comes part of my solution for Foxparks being able to hold up the weight and size of his tail. I figured to help with stability for the 2 back paws, I was going to extend the flames out a bit further than I did the front. So let's give it a quick test. Perfect, works out well. Now let's finish giving those boots with the flames some fiery aesthetic. With this, I kept switching back and forth between my rubber tip tools and my needlepoint. For detailing, I would use the tip of my finger as a resting point, press down and drag the clay out. And just repeat that same exact process with the rest of the feet. Getting creative with the flames was probably the best part of this project. And I love how stinking cute it's starting to come out. With the fiery feet all done, now let's move on to the flames on the tail. I wasn't entirely sure how exactly I was going to go about this, so I just kept adding on clumps, adding on more clumps, and just working my way around. I ended up just making a point at the end of the tail and started detailing. To detail out some larger flames, I would cut into the clay and fan it out. But for me personally, the flames still weren't big enough yet, so added more clay. To make it look a little more clean, I'm going to start outlining the little triangle parts where the flames end. And once that's all looking nice and clean, just fill in the rest with the flame details. But of course, I still wasn't completely happy with the flame size yet. It all looked a little too uniform, so I'm just going to pinch off the end and give it a bit of a curve. And once I'm pretty happy with how this looks, I'm going to save it and give it a bake. Now that I don't have the fear of smashing what I just did, I'm going to get it attached to the body. Using the added clay, just smooth it on to the butt. Oh yeah, and give it another bake. Coming in with the finer grit sandpaper, I'm just going to go all over the body for a nice, smooth finish. It can be a little time consuming, but I promise you that it's worth the results. With all the sculpting done, time to finally bring in the paint. I use white so often that I just get a big container of it. So using that, we're just going to go all over for a nice, even base coat. With that all covered now, let's move on to the orange fur. So I started off with using this canyon orange color, and I thought this would be the perfect match, but the further I got into it, the more it looked like it was a little too dark, so I switched to this lighter color. And while I felt like the mandarin color was also a little too light, I decided to just layer the colors together. So first, I would lay down the darker canyon orange, and while it was still semi-wet, I would then lay the mandarin orange on top of it. Working along as it wasn't fully dry yet, it was easier to blend it in together and get the color I liked. Moving on to inside the ears and on the chest, I'm going to be using this French vanilla color. Oh yeah, and I also used it for the eyebrows a little later on as well. Next up, I'm going to start using this apricot color to start off the flames. I'm going to be using this with a little bit of mixture of white as the base color. I'm going to make it that the closer it gets down to the toes, it's going to be a lighter color than the rest. And the further it fans out, the darker it will get. And just repeat that same process on the tail flame. But now switching up the color a bit as we get closer to the tip, I'm going to start using the orange color that I used on the fur first. Just trying to do everything evenly and blending things out. And to add the final touches to these flames, I'm gonna add just a tiny bit of red to the tip of all these little points. And when I say tiny, I really mean such a small dab of it on the paintbrush because a little goes a long way. Now let's bring in some real brown and start detailing the tips of his ears. And once that's looking good, we're gonna move on to the tail. This was a bit more difficult to paint due to the amount of points on his tail, but I mapped it out first and then filled it in. This was probably the part that I kept looking back and forth at my reference the most because I had to make sure that I was doing it correctly. I'm trying not to be so hard on myself anymore about being a perfectionist, but sometimes it still kicks in. Thankfully, I ended up being pretty happy with how the tail turned out. And still using that same brown, I'm gonna add the itty bitty nose. And also at this point, I realized I made a whoopsie. While sculpting, I completely forgot to add a mouth area, so I'm just gonna lightly add some brown to shape a mouth. Now using some darker orange, I'm gonna paint the tips of the face fluffies. And at this point, like the same issue that I had with Kwabena when I sculpted her, I made the face a bit too round, so I'm just gonna sand it down. And after sanding and repainting it, I'm just going to use a pencil to outline where I want the eyes to be. This is because I'm clumsy and I end up making a lot of mistakes when it comes to fine detailing, so this makes it way easier for me to do. This way I know it's in the correct spot and I don't have to keep painting things over and over again and just end up with a mess in the end. I've had to learn the hard way that trying to paint the same area multiple times trying to fix your mistakes just results in a bumpy nightmare. But now here comes my least favorite part, outlining the thin black lines. Typically, I use my fine point acrylic marker, but I didn't have it on hand at the moment. I was at my office at work and I didn't want to wait any longer, so I said a prayer to God and just went with it. I was doing okay at first, but then I started going a little too heavy-handed with it. But of course, it's okay because I was able to fix it in the end, without making it more of a mess, thankfully. After completing the eyes with some shading, it's getting close to the finish line. Using my absolute favorite ultra matte varnish, I'm going to be coating the entire body with this. Well, everywhere except the flames, since I'll be using something slightly different for that. Finally, I'm going to be bringing in this Sculpey satin glaze. I've rarely ever used this, so now's my time to do it. I didn't want the flames to be completely flat, but this satin glaze gives off a slight sheen that I really liked. Now let's move on to the reveal shots. Being one of my favorite pals, I am super happy with how this came out. And if you guys made it this far in the video, drop a fire emoji in the comment section down below for Foxparks. Thank you so much for watching and spending your time with me. I hope I inspired you guys to try this out and to do something crafty. Have fun creating, as always. Till next time, bye!